Hello everyone, thank you for joining the program. Go to Oro, or what used to be the Northern Province, and you will almost always hear the chant, Oro, Oro, welcome, welcome. Oro is the originating point of the famous Kokoda Trail and the equally famous Queen Alexandra birdwing butterfly. But today it is perhaps remembered more for the undesirable, natural disasters, crime, corruption, neglect, denial of services, to mention a few. Again, the unfortunate reality is that these are created by only a minority. The 176,000 people are hardworking and peace-loving, and they want to move forward. And they may make some headway in that direction with Gary Juffa, the new governor and leader of the People's Movement for Change. In this edition of Tok Piksa, Mr. Juffa also looks at the performances of both the government and the opposition, watching them from the middle row in Parliament. As a former head of customs, Mr. Juffa also talks about the tax regime in the country. But firstly, what he is confronted with in Popondetta as a first-time MP. Thank you, Governor Juffa, for making time available to talk to us. Sir, the word is Oro. Welcome to the program. How has it been?
Oh, as a governor, it's a difficult challenge that I've come to realize. The province is in chaos. The entire government organs there are in complete disconnect and disarray, and we're in a process of rebuilding them. But to rebuild them first, we have to take stock, we have to assess the state of the province, and we have to see what needs to be done, and then we have to plan how we're going to do it.
To the system.
Yes, so a lot of it's learning as I go along. You know, I've never been a governor. I used to manage a government department, and it's far easier to manage a government department than to manage a province.
People there, department is stationary, yes, people are thinkers, so you've got to...
Absolutely, and a province, you know, you have government organs and entities, you have the private sector there, you have the public there, and you have all the expectations of all those characters, all those actors, we could say.
That's right.
And then you're basically, for myself, I felt that I was thrown in the deep, because when I landed on the ground, I was appalled and shocked at the state of the province, the state of the infrastructure, the state of what I had available to be able to do what I wanted to do. And after 6 months later, John, I'm still in the process of assessing and reviewing and still trying to clean up and put together something that will allow me to be able to take stock of what's going on and plan and do the things that I need to do.
Yeah, but cleaning up is the operative word here for you. I suppose you've not only got to clean up the administration and Popondetta, if you will, but what Cyclone Guba and natural disasters have left for you.
Absolutely. We had Cyclone Guba in 2007. And soon thereafter, the government responded, created an organization called the NPRA, which is the Northern Province Restoration Authority, which was supposed to be the vehicle through which changes could be undertaken to rebuild Oro Province.
Have they done that?
No, I can say firmly and quite honestly that has not happened. And there have been some good people in this organization, but unfortunately, perhaps due to lack of political direction, I could say, nothing happened.
What about the millions that will have gone into?
Oh, substantial amounts of money were misused, and I've got the audit reports there to prove that. I've got facts, figures, documents, etc. that I've obtained from the Auditor General's office. In fact, when I took office, the first thing that I did was to pay a visit to these crucial agencies, like the Auditor General, the Department of Personal Management, the Office of Rural Development, IRC, and so forth, to try and see where they could assist me and how they could give me information that will be able to help me to carry out my responsibilities and duties. And when I visited the Office of the Auditor General and I obtained copies of these audit reports on the investigations that they had conducted with the police into misuse of funds allocated for Cyclone Guba, it was appalling to see how much money had been put into the province but had been diverted elsewhere.
Yes.
And the organization had done a little bit, and the people within the organization, there were some who did try their best, but in general, nothing happened. And in 2007, we had Cyclone Guba as a disaster, and I like to say that after 2007, we had another disaster. And that disaster was the lack of provincial government and national government concern about what was going on.
Okay. But now you have more disasters. Your bridges washed away. You have more disasters now, so it gets compounded for you.
Oh, certainly. I mean, look, global warming is taking place around the world, and Papua New Guinea is facing the effects of global warming. It's facing the effects of environmental damage, climatic changes, and so forth.
You have a very important province, in fact, known by the world, if you will. You've got the Kokoda Trail that links to Kokoda Station. How is the law and order situation over there?
When I arrived in Oro Province, that is the first thing that I made an effort to do, and that was to establish order. Now, I'm from a law enforcement background. When I was with Customs, I'm a trained investigator and an intelligence officer, and that is my training and background. So I was very much aware of the law and order situation in Oro, insofar as the alarming rate of crime, the violent crimes that were being committed there, and not being addressed. The policing situation, the policing services were also in a very sad state. And so the first thing I did when I got there was to try and take stock and assess the situation, what we have on the ground, and try to do the best we can with what we had at that time. The law and order situation is compounded by the fact that we only have 65 policemen on the ground.
Regulars?
Regular policemen. Now, we are supposed to have 360 policemen. That is the staff ceiling. But we have only 60. We have only about 5 vehicles. The United Nations ratio of policemen to citizen is supposed to be 1 to 400.
That's right. But the whole country is in trouble.
Well, in the whole country, it's 1 to 1,270. In Oro, it's 1 to 2,700.
Oh, but you have a mobile squad there, and
well, the mobile squad goes there regularly. Okay. Whenever we have major issues and major crimes, there's a proliferation of gang violence. We have drug trade, firearms. I was almost shot while stopping a tribal fight, and these type of things happen, and then we fly in the police mobile squad to try to identify the perpetrators and dismantle the gangs that are operating.
Some accusation against them?
Yes, they've done a great job in general. There are also some accusations against them for abuse of force, but this normally happens in any such situation where you have a very difficult population or you have a non-compliant population in particular areas. And so there will always be enthusiasm or over-enthusiasm on the part of maybe 1 or 2 of the policemen. But most of them do their job. And so, I've asked for complainants to come forward and give me their complaints and, lodge their complaints with evidence rather than just making rhetorical or rumors and spreading misinformation, which is also the case in many instances. When you have criminals that have associates who are benefiting from the crimes, they will tend to complain. They will go out in the media and say there is police brutality, and we're dealing with criminals here.
Is that what's happening in Oro? Is that what's happening in Oro?
Of course, of course. And there are those who have been affected by the police activities that are complaining the loudest, and they're coming out in the media and they're making
people in high places.
Perhaps.
Leaders,
perhaps. But what I'm doing is I'm taking a pragmatic view. I'm trying to say I work with facts, and I've heard the rumors, but I want to see facts. Now, the policing activities there, they were able to capture a number of escapees. They were able to dismantle a number of criminal organizations that were operating there, including a character who used a dinghy and had captured some people in Tufi and had kidnapped them. They were able to find him and trace him. They recovered about 10 firearms from logging sites and from various areas throughout Oro Province, a substantial amount of cannabis, illegal alcohol, implementing equipment, and a lot of great work. I guess their failing was to publicize a lot of their good work. So 1 or 2 areas where they may have been over-exuberant, that became publicized by members of the concerned public.
Tok Piksa, we are talking to the Oro Governor, Gary Jufa. Let's come to the national scene now. Let's come to Parliament first. You and your little party, you're in the middle looking at the government and the opposition. What have you seen?
Well, I made a concerted effort to not rush to either the opposition or the government camp. The government camp, meaning the camp that was setting up in Alatau and the camp that was setting up in Kokopo. I decided instead to make my decision on the floor of Parliament. And
you didn't go to these two camps?
Didn't go to either camp. But at the same time, I was...
Did they approach you?
Yes, they did. And I advised them that, look, I would like to go to Parliament and make my decision there. But at the same time, I knew very well that the O'Neill government would be the government offered, or would be the party offered to make government, because PNC had the numbers.
Yes,
yes. And that was a given. I guess as a governor, perhaps I should have gone to either one, I'm not sure. But as a person, I decided to make my decision on the floor of Parliament. In Parliament, I sit in the middle bench. And I sit in the middle bench because I thought, the government and the opposition at both times, both organizations, often forget to address issues that confront the ordinary Papua New Guinean.
Okay.
And so I thought that I'll make it my responsibility to represent the ordinary person, to be their voice, and to stand up and say to the government or the opposition, these are issues that concern the ordinary person, and they need to be addressed. When I went there to the middle bench, I was joined by Mera Kipefa, member for Obura Waninara, and member for Goroka, Mr. Bireki Misopa, and governor for Morobe, Mr. Kelly Naru. And we formed what we call an alliance of conviction, where we are convicted about what we believe in on behalf of our people. And we feel that we must keep in touch with our people and understand what it is that they need and they deserve and they're concerned about. And let us address those issues on the floor of Parliament. So we said, let's be this little group, and let us take the government to account, and let us remind the opposition as well about what they need to do. And so that's what we've been doing.
So you are the watchdog for the government and the opposition.
That's correct, and we have we don't have enemies in either camp.
Okay.
But at the same time, we are not there to make enemies or friends. We are there to represent our people, and that's what we are doing.
If you've watched the government, and with what's happened right now with Prime Minister O'Neill saying implementation and calling everybody to account and things like that, up till this week, that's been the norm. How have you read that?
That's good. I mean, I'm all for that. We always need implementation, but we also need oversight. We need an oversight mechanism to ensure that what it is that we're doing is done with the people's interests at heart. See, John, I'm guided by two fundamental principles of management, and I apply these fundamental principles of management in my department and in my life, and I'm doing the best I can to abide by them in Parliament. And those fundamental principles of management are to do what is just and right at all times, and to be with your people. Now, if you frame all your decisions within the parameters of these principles, you can't go wrong. So I look at all the decisions that the government makes, and if I feel that they are silent in areas where they should be vocal, or I feel that they're ignoring certain issues that need to be addressed, then I'll raise those matters on the floor of Parliament. I will not wait for the opposition to rise up and do that. I'll do it myself.
Have there been any of those?
Of course. We have such controversial issues as the matter of Joko Chandra, who's a transnational criminal from Indonesia, who happens to be in Papua New Guinea. He was met at the airport on June 2011 at 4 a.m., 4 boxes of whiskey, a senior government minister and a bureaucrat, and he was cleared into this country. And then he was given citizenship thereafter by a one-man committee. Now that's illegal and that's wrong, especially since Joko has been convicted in Indonesia for crimes against their laws, banking crimes and fraudulent activities that he is alleged to have committed, which they convicted him of. I'm against the awarding of citizenship to him. I was also against the Naima Rice project, and I'm glad to say, and I must say, I commend the Minister for Agriculture, Mr. Tommy Tomsko, for having scrapped that project. It was a very sinister project, John. It was a project where a company intended to commercialize and monopolize the rice distribution, growth, or not growth, but distribution and sale in Papua New Guinea.
Yes.
And such are the issues. Nautilus, the mining of the seabed, without knowledge of the repercussions or ramifications and how that license was granted and so forth. Taxation, how the taxation regime needs to be restructured. It does not favor the ordinary Papua New Guinean. It certainly does not favor the ordinary Papua New Guinean businessman, but we are granting all manner of tax exemptions and holidays to large multinational companies. Right. These are issues that confront our people.
You mentioned mining companies, corporates, individuals who are businesses. They seem to be influencing the way we operate in this country. Are corporate organizations and powerful individual businessmen running the country today?
Well, John, that's the trend the world over. And it's a frightening trend.
And we can't escape from that.
No, we can. We can. And there are examples of how we can escape that. And those examples are in Central and South America, where some countries, and in Southeast Asia, have found a way to deliver to their people what their people need, manage the corporate animal, so to speak, so that it does not overtake the country, and be able to manage the country and its future.
Do you think that's happening in this country?
Of course.
It is. At what levels do you think?
At very high levels. And at the same time, you see, we are influenced by large international organizations, the IMF, World Trade Organization, World Bank, for instance. And these organizations influence policy development in a manner that benefits them or those that subscribe to them. And let us say, especially the developed nations who fund those organizations in the first place. We're a small developing country. We cannot resist. That's what we believe. That's what we've been led to believe. But we can resist. We can make policies that benefit our people. We can look at development issues and say, well, this we can hold off. We do not need to move into this particular development project. We can hold off until we know more about it or until we are ready for it. And let us focus on, say, agriculture and tourism and so forth. But at the end of the day, the world now with globalization, and the trend is that the corporate world is having a greater influence on the governments of the world.
Yes. And are they, or do you think they would be behind our governments pushing out to extend the grace period from 18 to 30? Sure, it's about stability implementation. We want to create that. But there is a could there be a hidden force behind that?
There could be any number of answers. It makes sense that a government would want stability. It needs stability so that it can be able to deliver its programs, and it can be able to meet its objectives, and it can be able to deliver what it feels needs to be delivered to the people and the corporate sector, its investors, and so forth. That could be that there are large, powerful forces behind this extension. I can't really comment because, to be honest, I don't know.
All right.
And I don't like to comment on things that I do not have the facts.
Okay. What about the opposition stand? The opposition has come out on a lot of grounds, about 5 or 6 points that it has specifically mentioned as the government pushing and it is opposed to. And you are in the middle. I'm just wondering what your thoughts on those.
Well, the opposition have raised some good issues as well that need to be considered. There have been some major issues that need some decisive action. With credit to the government, they have acted decisively in certain areas. For instance, when it became known that Joko Chandra was issued a passport under a different name, Joe Chan, they immediately moved to cancel that passport. When Tommy Tomskol, the Minister for Agriculture, dug deep and found out that the Naima rice project, we had forked out about 2 million kina to give to these people so that they can go and draft an NEC policy and bring it back to us. Here is a true act of stupidity, whereby we give our money to an investor to prepare a document and come and give it back to us so that we can say, do we agree or not, to allow them to come in and run a monopoly. So they've acted in those parts. In regards to the Nautilus issue, that's an issue that I don't think the government acted decisively, but has acted to a degree. So the opposition has its points, which it is raising. I see both ends, and I see merit and validity in both their arguments. I do want a stable government, but I also want a government that's going to respond to the interests of the people and respond in a timely and effective manner.
Yes.
You cannot take note and say, yes, we are concerned. You must say, yes, we are concerned, and do something about it. And that's what needs to be done. For instance, what begs to be done now is that Joko Chandra needs to be deported from this country. His citizenship, which was unlawfully granted to him, needs to be revoked, and he needs to be sent back to Indonesia so that he can Face the Music over there, for instance.
Yeah. Let's go on to tax now, the tax formulas or tax regimes that we're part of. I earn so much, I am taxed, I go to the store and buy a tin fish and I pay the tax on top of that. I am 3 or 4 times taxed. I mean, as Commissioner of Customs at that time, you know, what is the, people are saying they're overtaxed. What should be done?
John, you know, to be honest, I look at the taxation regime and I think what needs to be done for the ordinary Papua New Guinean is we need to lower the taxes that they are paying as pay-as-you-earn tax, PAE tax. Right now, it's in the vicinity of 35%. I think we can lower it to 20%. And we should increase the threshold to, let's say, those earning, say, 30,000 and below should not pay tax.
What's the threshold now?
Right now, it's about 20,000.
20,000.
Yes. If you're earning 20,000 and above, you got to pay tax.
That's right.
You know,
That's
if
right.
you earn that and less, you don't pay tax. You know, and at the same time, the dependents, they say that you're only allowed to claim 4 dependents. You know, well, probably that's okay. That we can leave it at that, because if we encourage 6 or 7, maybe there'll be a population boom, and we don't want that. But what we can do is reduce the tax
threshold. We might be.
Yeah, well, the tax rate should be reduced from 35%, in my opinion, to at least 10 to 15%. Then we can also increase the tax on foreign employers, or foreign employees, sorry. Right now it's at about 40%, I believe. We can increase that to 50%, because they get substantially more.
Are you passing on your thoughts to appropriate government people?
I've raised it in Parliament, and I've also asked the Treasurer if I could be part of a taxation review committee. You see, we've had taxation reviews before on the same reasoning, that we need to address the tax regime so that it in some way benefits our people. But the outcomes have been different. The taxation reviews have come out with outcomes which benefit foreign investors, multinational companies, and they have not benefited the ordinary Papua New Guinean or the ordinary Papua New Guinean businessman. For example, a lot of the resource projects that you see in this country, they receive a substantial amount of tax holidays, tax exemptions, customs exemptions, and so forth. There's a mining company that is the 5th largest in the world that has not paid corporate tax for the last 25 years. Why? You know,
all of those need to be revisited.
You look at resource companies, fish canneries, and so forth, that are huge tax holidays, customs exemptions galore. They pay absolutely nothing in tax. So to meet the shortfall in revenue, we are overtaxing our individual Papua New Guineans.
Okay,
you know,
okay.
And that's,
so the whole
that's
system needs to be revisited,
certainly.
And new ideas,
yes.
And of course with people like you inside.
Yeah, and let's have Papua New Guineans on that review committee, I'm saying. You know, because Papua New Guineans that do understand what the ordinary Papua New Guinean feels and needs, and how to adjust the taxation regime so that we can benefit from these days of plenty.
Tok Piksa, we are talking to the Oro Governor, Gary Jufa, the People's Movement for Change. You're a small party. You've lost Labi Amayu. How do you feel? What do you think about that?
Well, everything happens for a reason. That's my philosophy, John. Everything happens for a reason. Labi left for a reason. He had his reasons. And I never look and regret. Regretting is a waste of spirit.
So
I look at looking forward.
Okay.
And so that happened for a reason. I'm sure of it. We may not know now, but we will know later on. I am focusing on 2017, and we have a good following. The approach we took during the 2012 elections, John, was not to pay people, was not to commit people to killing the chickens and pigs and cows and making big feasts and paitim kundugo morning. We said, no, that type of election campaigning, we are not going to involve ourselves in that. We went out and talked to our people. We said, give me your time. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about our yesterday. Let's talk about our today. And let's talk about our children's tomorrow. All this great talk about economic prosperity and benefits and economic boom and so forth, the ordinary Papua New Guinean, John, is not feeling it. He's not seeing it. His life has just become more difficult, more costly. He's more bitter.
2017, how do we see you?
Well, 2017, I hope to muster a good number of people, get into Parliament.
You have prime ministerial ambitions.
I will not say anything about
But
that.
every leader has that.
Every leader, I guess, has that.
Yeah.
If I were to be prime minister, I'd be very happy.
All right.
You know, but then again, there are great challenges, and to be prime minister, it takes a lot of effort, and you've got to make a lot of, you know, commitment to doing what it is that you want to do, and you know, that's a journey I think about, but in the back of my mind. And you see, John, something great is happening now, which I'm seeing and I'm really enthusiastic about. And that is the development of that middle sector, that development of that educated class of Papua New Guineans who can see what's going on and who are communicating and coming together. And they're rising up. And if you rise up as one person, you will not be seen. If you are one voice, you will not be heard. But if you rise up together, they will have to take notice. And if you call out with one voice together, they will have to listen to you.
Oro Governor Gary Jufa, also the leader of the People's Movement for Change. No doubt we will, or the country will, hear more of him. This has been Tok Piksa. We'll do it again. Another person, another topic in our next edition. Thank you for watching.